defense is struggling against the run, but the offense is struggling to protect Ryan Tannehill. He's been hit a lot, 20 sacks, only 24 last year.
So you went and looked up some numbers to
You know
justify
me.
that?
I like numbers. No, not. I just wondered, okay.
I just wondered, because you was wondering.
They were 3 in scoring offense last year. They were number 3. And so you and Kevin Dyson and me would have this conversation a whole lot. Well, if they get 3 stops a game.
Right, defensively.
Remember, and we broke it down. Like, we looked at it week after week after week. So we got to, week 11, 12, 13. A number was 3. If they could get 3 stops a game, they could beat anybody. But the defense was struggling. So that's kind of where we landed. So I thought, where are they in scoring offense? They're actually 10th right now, even with all the trouble. They're 10th in scoring offense, 26.4 points per game, and they're 10th in total offense, 389. The 9 teams ahead of them all average over 400 yards per game, so they're next at 389 points.
So do they break it down? What are they in rushing and what are they in passing, and then total offense?
Yeah, and I can get that. This is what I wrote down this morning, though, just because I wondered, and again, it's right here. I can get it.
Because you could be in number 2 in rushing and then be number 14 and be overall 10. Yep. You know what I'm getting at? So it kind of can be skewed that way. I don't feel like that they're a prolific offense by any means like last season. No way. It
doesn't feel like that to me. That's why I was surprised they were number 10.
Yeah, maybe they're just looking at overall yardage But that sounds good on the surface. It shows you, how stats can just give you a gauge, and not actually tell you what's really going on. Because, man, without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, just imagine what they'd be. Would we be in the top 5? That's how I feel like it should be.
See, me too.
If not, then you're going to start looking at it and say, we can put any pieces, solid NFL pieces in there, and we can still run our offense.
Right.
That's what you'll start as a GM, coach. You'll start believing some of these stats. We all know certain players makes, offenses and defenses better.
So they are number 3 rushing offense, 168 yards per game. They trail Cleveland and Dallas only in the rushing attack. So, and this goes, like you said, passing. I'd have to count back, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams worse than them. So what does that make them out of 32? 26. So near the bottom in passing. Top in rushing.
See? So at the end of the day, they're a middle-of-the-road offense. That's how I look at it. They're at 15, 16, maybe 12 at some point in time, depending on who they're playing or have a good day or who's healthy or not. So, right now, it doesn't matter about those stats to me. They look like, at this point, a middle-of-the-road team.
Yeah.
Going into the season, we were thinking, okay, playoff contending team, Super Bowl contending team. Well, they don't look like that. And you can say, okay, you can blame health, but you can do what you want to do. At the end of the day, everybody else is kind of going through the same things. And they've had 2 valuable pieces, 3 really, with Dupree. Yeah. It's not played very much at all.
And Caleb Farley hasn't played much, first-round pick. Second-round pick hasn't played hardly at all, Dylan Radins. Monty Rice hasn't been a big factor as an early pick.
Radins may now with Ty Sombrello, your guy.
Yeah.
Sombrello needs an umbrella.
They threw away the umbrella because it's about to be raining on Radins. Because he's, hey, man. I knew
I couldn't beat you at your game.
Hey, man. How you feeling? You rested? Yeah, you're going to have to go and take all these. I was listening to some Bills stuff this morning.
But you Bills Mafia?
Well, not the Mafia, not the table breakers, but the people who cover the team. And we're talking about the defensive line. We keep throwing around. It's like 10 guys. It's 11 guys. They have 11 defensive linemen. They dress 9 on game days. So the last few guys are just jousting, to try to get their 25 snaps. And everybody plays. It's pretty amazing. But this,
as I said before, their front 4 or front 8 is pretty impressive.
And then they're good on the back end, too.
Now, they didn't do any blitzing versus the Chiefs. I would assume that they're going to do a little bit different against the Titans. I think their familiarity with the Chiefs, understanding how you got to, stop that style of offense, is totally different than ours. You have to have, even if it's just run blitzes, they have run-type blitzes installed. They have to have those to play the Titans when you're going against the King. It's impossible. So I would expect that they're going to show some things maybe they showed earlier in the season, even though it's still early. I mean, maybe week 2, 3, or maybe week 1 when they lost to the Steelers. Because I would say the Titans' offense is a conventional offense. They're not, having 5 wide receivers out there. They do a lot of, 2 tight end, 3 tight end, then they switch it up and come with 3 receivers, maybe 4 at times, right? Very rarely. So yeah, I think they will. I don't think the same game plan is going to be the one they use against the Chiefs versus the Titans. You would probably go back and look at the film from last year and look at that and see how they play in sack, because obviously they did fairly well in holding, the King down.
Yeah,
people forget.
Yards. I think it was his lowest total of the year against Buffalo.
Yeah, he did that. Now they got up on him, and then they were, at that point in time, I don't remember how much the King really played, but they made some plays on defense. They made a couple picks, tip balls, and everything else, and they were playing catch up, the Bills, but. They did a fairly good job. I mean, everybody remembers the Norman straight arm, but I mean, he only gained like 5 yards or something.
Yeah, play didn't count even. It was it
play
got called back.
Count.
Remember?
Okay.
And it was still poor Norman can't go to the grocery store without seeing that.
Man, I can't imagine. Man, I tell you, I got straight arm like that one time. Corey Dillon, that would have went viral. Man, he got me somewhat similar to that. Because as a tackler, you never want to have your feet crossed.
Right.
And he was crossing, and Henry, so you had no power. Once he pressed on you, you were going to fall.
Right.
Yeah, so it was unfortunate that he's running sideways, and then Henry says, well, I'm going to go right at you. Instead of trying to avoid him, he went at him. He said, this little guy, I got to get him.
What's the best way? Because you mentioned this. You said that probably. I mean, the Chiefs tape is out there, so let's don't just repeat that. Let's do something different. You talked about run blitzes. So if you are really attacking a team in the run game, like everybody seems to do with the Titans, what's the antidote on offense? If a team is run blitzing you and hitting those gaps and doing those things, what's the best antidote? How do you beat that on offense?
Oh, well, for me, I would play action pass because there's predictors.
Right.
They had tendencies, and everybody knows they're running left. I mean, and then they stop it early until they just get pounded in submission. But I would play action pass. That's why I always talk about the setup. Right. What's the counter move, offensively and defensively? That's really what it is. You got to against the Titans type of offense. You go anchor the contain, and then you don't want to be going at an angle. So you don't want to do a lot of slanting and stunning because then you're getting your guys running at an angle down the line, and then it's easy to push you, and then he can kind of choose his gap. Mm-hmm. You want to try to set your guys up and get penetration. That's what kind of stalls that. Now it's easier said than done. You got another 300-pound guy in front of you.
Right.
So I would that's what I would do. Continue to do more boots. The screen has been effective. I'm surprised nobody has seen how the Titans are setting up those screens. I'm sure all of them are a little bit different, but in one game you can see it's the same. Mm-hmm. So when you go back, you say, well, we're going to do this kind of screen. I thought that was great by Downing there in the game. So he's done a pretty good job with that. I just think you got to keep the teams off balance. I would do, and I always say no huddle. It's just kind of broad brush. It's really no huddle. You just go up to the line. You start calling your play. You take your time. You see how they're set up. You want to catch them off where they don't have to bring in another 4 guys to rush the passer. No, we're going to keep these 4 here.
Sure.
Because those guys aren't used to playing a lot. So we're going to you run those guys in you want to. I'm going to snap the ball. So that's kind of a plan of attack. If I'm offense, I would definitely do that. I don't want those guys get comfortable out there. What else would I would do if I was the Titans? Naturally, you're still always going to go with the King. I'm going to try to get in some one-on-one matchups and try to see my big boys, since they going to be back, supposedly, A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. If you get paid the big bucks, let's go. Yeah. Let's go. I'm going to throw some up there for you. Make a play for me. Make a play. They have some really good DBs. The safeties and the corners are really solid. Even the nickel guys, Johnson, he's so they've got some great pieces. The middle linebacker, Edmonds, can run with anybody, any tight end. He's kind of a modern-day Keith Bullock in my mind, but he's playing middle linebacker, not outside. And that's kind of why it's changed, because all the passing. Right. But he has length. He can run. They have a history of the Edmond, brothers in the league. I think his father even played in the league. So they have like 3 guys just from that family. Well, the other one's a safety with the Steelers. Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys, hey, man, so you got to know who you're dealing with. So they got some great pieces on defense. So the one thing we don't want to happen here is for the Bills to get up on us early, and now we're chasing the points. And I don't think the Titans style will ever be that way unless it gets to the fourth quarter, that they're going to chase. They're still stick with their model. But if they get up by enough where you start saying, hey, we got to change what we're thinking, that's probably the line for me is 12. It may be different for them.
Sure.
But, yeah, because now that leads to their defense being able to sit back and make some plays.
Isn't it crazy, though, that we've seen the Titans team at times be losing by 12, 13, like at the beginning of the fourth
they're
quarter?
patient. They'll still go.
They just keep pounding it.
Well, I think there was one game. I can't remember the game. I think it was a year and a half ago where they realized if we just stay with the run, we don't get too far where we can still be in reach.
Right.
We can win this game still. And I think they won the game and they realized, all right, we're going to always stick with the running game. Henry's our guy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean,
and it shows in tape now, and then now everybody knows they're going to stick with their game plan.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
ZW adds in the Zone TV chat, man, got to spread the field some more. Get 9 dudes out of the box against the King, he's saying.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
You can spread them out, then you can motion them back, bring them back in. I'd like to see them do some of that with McNichols too, though, at the same time, which they've done. But I'm talking about run them, and run the ball and give Henry maybe a rest on first down on a series or two.
Yeah. Well, this ought to be a fun game. They got the Bills, they got Kansas City, they got at Indy, at Rams, then they host the Saints. You got to win one of these next couple of games, Bills and KC. I mean, you got to.
So you're saying you want to split?
I mean, at this point somebody said, "I'm going to shake your hand and offer you a split on these 2 games," would you take it? Not as a player, just as you and me sitting here.
Oh, a player, definitely not.
No.
But sitting here as we're talking about it, I would say this would be the tougher one to get.
Yeah.
I think the Bills are the number 1 AFC team, as I said the other day. And so this will be a huge statement for the Titans across, the country, really, that they're for real. And we can play against all the elites.
Yeah.
Who cares what happened with the Jets 2 weeks ago?
Right.
You beat the Bills, you go, whoa, because they are playing with confidence. I like what I see offensively and defensively, and I like the way Allen is carrying himself, and everything is no big deal. It's just like, this is what I do.
Like an MVP.
Yeah, he looks different than last year.
Zach Bingham, he's no different than last year. He's still with A to Z Sports. He's going to join us next. He's an Ole Miss guy. Ole Miss and Tennessee getting set to play. We'll talk that. We'll talk Titans. We'll talk everything with the Z of A to Z next.
Mike Keith and Coach Mack bring every Titans game to your smartphone. Hear every game. There's your answer. By downloading the 104.5 The Zone app.
Hockey season is in full swing right here in the Music City, folks.
I don't know. I mean, he's getting a little more involved, so maybe his health has been the issue, and maybe he's getting closer to 100%. But it just seems like he's not been involved as much as we all thought he would be, especially when we let Jonnu go, which, I don't think it merited paying Jonnu what it was going to take to keep him. But be interested in your all's thoughts, because we don't really have a go-to guy on third down and short or third medium, and Berkshire's been that guy, or at least one of those guys the last few years. Just got to wonder, he's kind of been a ghost so far.
Colt, thank you, man. Ghost call right in time for Halloween. Zach, I think we all sort of hoped that Anthony Ferkser would help fill that void left by Jonnu. Really, the surprise tight end for this team has been a guy that they let walk in free agency, and then he came back as Michael Pruitt.
Yeah, it has been a surprise. And Anthony Ferkser, I actually just looked it up while Colt was asking that question, because his time to shine was on 2nd and 5 with 28 seconds left to go in overtime in New York when he dropped the football. Yeah. And that is a catch that starting quarterback or starting tight ends make from their quarterbacks. And I think that could have changed the dynamic of that overtime game, because you got 28 seconds left and maybe, you're within reach to try to win that game, then try to tie that game. We all know how that ended. But Ferkser, coming into this year, he had a lot of weight on his shoulders and he hasn't stepped up. And Mickey, you're right. The guy that has really brought the production has been Michael Pruitt, but that tight end group as a whole, big drop off from a handful of years ago, because the Titans have usually always been a tight end heavy team. Blaine knows that to his days when he was a Titan, and they've kind of gone away with that with the Julio Jones trade. But when your wide receivers aren't available, your tight ends have to be. And that's been a struggle the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would completely agree with both you guys. I would just add this, though. A lot of people wanted them to have an elite tight end. To me, I don't even look at it as a position. I feel like what you just said, Zach, is that you have to have two big-time weapons. It can come from anywhere, whether it's receiving running back, tight end, another receiver. So I think they have that. They just haven't been available as much. So then now the pressure is on Ferkser. When he's a role player, he's really good. And that's what happens in a lot of, teams, is they think a role player also then become the main guy. And I think he's not that kind of player. I think he's a route running tight end, and that's where he's at, and he's comfortable there. When he has to be the number one guy, I just don't think that he feels comfortable all the time, at least now, especially coming off an injury early in the season and then trying to get back into the flow.
But I will say this, his role is to catch the football in overtime on 2nd and 5 to help your team win.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. I mean, you're not going to catch all the balls they throw to you. Has Julio or A.J. Brown done that? See? So that's what I'm saying. We're asking him to be something that he's not, even in a critical situation. Well, critical was never critical when you're a role player. So the pressure doesn't mount to make the catch.
Zach Bingham, our guest, A to Z Sports. I know we're going to get into Ole Miss and Tennessee. You're an Ole Miss guy, and you live in Tennessee. We'll talk about all that. But Colt kind of steered us down this Titans road. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. There's been questions, heck, even of the Titans coaching staff. Do you feel like this is too much use of Derrick Henry? And, what was the quote from Todd Downing? No one said in my headset, don't run him, right here. Hey, make sure you pull him out here. They don't seem concerned about it. Are you concerned about it, Zach?
Yeah, Zach would hold back some of his carries, right?
Yeah, well, so with Derrick Henry, it's interesting because he's just such a big piece to this puzzle of accomplishing your goal. And it's a longer season. It's 17 games. He's really going to be called on a lot the next 4 when you think about Buffalo on Monday night, Kansas City, Indianapolis, and LA, because those are 4 tough teams. But I do think that, the backup running back situation is improved from last year, where you've had McNichols make some big third down catches. That's a plus. But we talked about this on the show this morning, kind of regarding the health and the scheme going into the next several games. Is I want to see this Tennessee Titans team fully healthy. I don't think that we're going to see them fully healthy. For the next 4 games, though, I want to see them with the guys that they brought in, right? Like the Julio Joneses. I think Derrick Henry can carry you to a point, But to beat the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football and to follow that up and beat the Kansas City Chiefs the following week, Ryan Tannehill has to have somebody else besides Derrick Henry. I don't think he can do it himself. Now, he is, we like to call on A to Z Sports, Derrick Henry is a cyborg. He is he's a fictional character in the NFL.
Yeah.
He stays healthy. He's massive. He is a beast to take down. You got him in his prime right now. You don't want to overuse him. You have to use him, but it is Todd Downing. I kind of gave him, the first quarter of the season to figure out what his strategy is going to be. Well, his strategy tells us that he's going to run Derrick Henry as much as possible. I think he's got to figure out situations where he can let Derrick Henry be a decoy and get other guys and set them up for success. Like their tight end position, they need to get more out of that. And we'll see what happens when Julio and AJ come back healthier, which I know it's not official, but Julio Jones, I expect, is my personal opinion, to play on Monday night against the Buffalo Bills. And he's got to give you some production to take some carries away from Derrick Henry.
Zach Bingham breaking it down here with us, some A to Z Sports on Blaine and Mickey.
Yeah, great stuff, Zach. I'm going to stay with the Julio Jones. How much do you think he will impact the game, as well as how much will he play? Let's say, will they have him on a pitch count?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think Julio Jones, I think what happened was at the end of the Indy game, something happened to his hamstring. That was, reported. That's what we've seen in the injury report. And I think they looked at the Jets and the Jags to say, Julio Jones is an older player. He's older than AJ Brown. You've got to kind of come along a little bit slower. And I think they thought that they were going to beat the Jets and the Jags. Now they split. They're 1-1. I think that the Titans need Julio Jones on Monday night, because if you beat the Buffalo Bills at the end of the season, you can be, and this is the Titans mindset, and it should be, competing for the number 1 seed. That should be your goal. And Buffalo stands in your way. And it looks like Buffalo is going to be there. Now, the Titans have the benefit of a very easy division. The Jags, the Texans, and the Colts are not playing good, and their records are disastrous. So you got to take advantage of that. So I think that they'll play Julio, honestly, the majority of the game. There will be sets. Maybe if there's one wide receiver set, it's not going to be Julio. It will be AJ instead. But overall, you can't get down because you're going to have to rely on your wide receivers. I think that Mike Vrabel and this game plan, I think they play Julio as much as Julio can play.
Well, you were talking about Todd Downing and how he did a good job at least setting up screenplays and everything else. What grade do you give him at this point in the season? I know it's still early yet, but let's see if he gets a passing grade from my man from A to Z, the co-owner.
I'm not gonna give him an F. But
I didn't think you were giving him an F.
Yeah, that got dark and
That's
hurry.
telling me what you're thinking, you're not too happy.
Well, I'm not going to give him an A either. I think I would give him a C+ because he's had to deal with some adversity within his personnel. As we know, AJ and Julio have both gotten hurt. You have Derrick Henry that has been the staple, but his offensive line hasn't been great for Ryan Tannehill, and that hinders your play calling. Plus, they lost the lead against New York. They had to play comeback. Now, in Jacksonville, that was, and it's unfortunate that I would say it was a gritty win, but it was a gritty win. They should have controlled that game better than they really did. But I think there's still a lot for him to learn about this offense in the next several weeks. The one thing I will say, as far as Todd Downing, I see a lot better game plan from week 1, which you all know it happened with Arizona, to where they are now heading into week 6. So that is good. That's improvement. You always want to get better. He definitely has not done an A job, and he hasn't failed, but he needs to start inching up into the high B+ when it comes to, mid-November, because that's when football really matters and you're trying to find your position in the playoffs.
Well, something that has failed, and that's Ty Sambralo's body. It has failed him. He is now retired. I mean, were you surprised to retire? Why can't he just go on injured reserve and still get a check? I would have done that, man. How smart is he, man? Come on. What happened here with all this tension in the building?
Well, Buck Rising on A to Z Sports.com. I'll give a quick plug, and you guys are great partners to our company. Buck had the report of some things that Ty Sambrailo was struggling with within the facility. And I think something definitely happened because it is too unique for a player that was getting playing time that is not a starter to retire in the middle of the season on the eve of the biggest 4-game stretch of the season. You have to be unhappy or something has to happen. And I think that's what Buck revealed, that maybe there is some pressures that Ty Sambrailo was not willing to take consistently over the next several weeks or the rest of the year. And I think we have to figure out, was that a singular incident between Sambrailo and the facility, or is it bigger? Because if it's bigger, then I think, over the next 2 games, Buffalo and Kansas City, if they lose those games, I think more stuff will start to come out, right? Because losing creates chaos. Now, winning cures everything. So it's unfortunate because the offensive line has not played well. Taylor Lewan, I think he said it himself, it's not the year that he wanted to start out. And what happened? Now, I think Lewan has gotten better. I think the offensive line has improved, but you got to protect Ryan Tannehill. He's probably your second biggest asset on the team besides Derrick Henry. I know he plays quarterback, which is unique. Usually the quarterback is the biggest asset, but they've got to get better on this offensive line. And you hope that Sambrailo's exit is not something bigger of a cause of concern.
When you say that, let's say, are you talking about more his injury and maybe he was playing where he wasn't healthy? I mean, what issue do you think, if you were speculating, that it was?
I think it was his unhappiness within the building. Unhappy player.
With his coach? I mean, what do you mean?
I think with his, as Buck Rising reported on our website, I think it was maybe some relationships within the facility. I think that's the best way that I could put it. And as I think everybody can understand this, when you're unhappy at work, it starts to creep into your other life. And it got to a tipping point, Blaine, right? I mean, you don't up and retire and pay millions of dollars. Yeah. That's why I don't think it's just, and he hasn't spoken to the media because he filed his, the Titans put him on the retirement list. I just think that this could be bigger than what we know, and it just doesn't sound like he was happy within the facility. But that tells us something about the facility. I mean, it does. That's not good. And if he was put in a position that he was uncomfortable with, then that's not good either. And so, like I said, I think that the test of the Tennessee Titans will be over the next several weeks against tough competitors and tough competition to see how they perform in the limelight against Monday Night Football against the Bills. And everybody's going to be watching that Chiefs game because everybody watches the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes.
Well, with Zach Bingham from A to Z Sports, co-owner of A to Z, and he's an Ole Miss grad, man. I know you're going to the game, right?
I am. I'm going to Knoxville this weekend. I'm really excited. I think Neyland's going to be rocking.
Okay. I'm still waiting for my invitation to go to the Grove, too, so just let me know, man. You got all my information. But we're on with Zach Bingham, co-owner of A to Z Sports, and I'm waiting, too.
Well, we wanted to make sure we got a couple of minutes left, Zach. Wanted to make sure that we hit this. It's a real interesting week because the Titans are embarking on this, impossible-looking part of the schedule. Really, it's the same for Tennessee. They got Ole Miss on Saturday night, then they go to Bama, then they go to Kentucky, then they host Georgia. So both teams have kind of had some chance to put some hay in the barn early, but Josh Heupel, I think their early returns have been good, but this game with Ole Miss, who can outscore who is sure how it feels like it's going to go.
Man, Tennessee has probably the biggest momentum they've had in quite some time, in years. 62 points and 45 points against SEC opponents. Now, be it Missouri and South Carolina, those are huge confidence boosters heading into a game where under the lights, Ole Miss, the return of Lane Kiffin, the storylines are going to be unbelievable. And then on the other side, Ole Miss, the thriller win last week against Arkansas, that I think boosted their confidence that they can come into Neyland and take care of business. I was surprised. Look, I think Vegas is expecting 80 plus points. Yeah. I hope there's 80 points because I think the stadium will be just unbelievable if that many points are being scored. But I think it comes down to Ole Miss's improvement on defense. They were really bad, and Lane Kiffin said this last week against Arkansas. If they continue that trend, I think they can allow Tennessee to hang around in the game. I think this is going to be a close game. I don't expect this to be a blowout on either side because I think both teams have offensive firepower to get them back in the game if they go down by 14 or 17 points. It's all going to be about Tennessee's offense and Hendon Hooker being able to consistently score on Ole Miss's defense and the adjustments that Lane Kiffin and his defense are going to make this week heading into the game. But man, I haven't been this excited about a Tennessee game in a long, long time. Again, I'm an Ole Miss guy, but I think the atmosphere, I think Vol fans are looking forward to it. I think Ole Miss fans are traveling for it. So it's going to be good.
Zach Bingham on with us talking a little football here on Thursday on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, since you're always helping, educate us, you need to educate us on how the media works. And that is the Adam Schefter, Mr. Editor, being in the media, sending it back to, Allen on his email to make sure everything was correct. How did you see that view that, what he did with the email with Adam Schefter?
So I think that in reporting, and obviously Adam Schefter has been doing this for a very, very long time. And
who apologized, by the way, too.
He did. He admitted his fault. And I thought Derek Carr put it very perfectly. He was talking to the Raiders media after Gruden got fired, and he said he loved the man but hated the sin, but also said that if we uncovered everybody else's emails, what would we find, right? And I think Adam Schefter got caught. The Mr. Editor, I think, was in jest. I don't think that is how Adam Schefter reports. I think the longevity and the history of your work should mean something. And I think in that instance, he probably would have done it differently, but I don't think by any means that was a fireable offense. And I don't think people view Adam Schefter any differently after that. He came out and apologized and moved on. And you wish that in some instances, and again, every circumstance is different. And I think that's what we're learning in this Twitter society, where you can be canceled at the snap of a finger. And if things are uncovered and you turn out to be a bad guy, like I think John Gruden was revealed to be, you've got to take your punishment. And the punishment for Gruden is resigning from a very powerful position of being a head coach in the NFL. And he's taken a lot of licks, and he should, from what he said. From Adam Schefter's perspective, I think this is a mistake. He apologized for it. He probably won't do it again. And I bet you that Adam Schefter has changed his reporting style from over the last several years, and he doesn't do that anymore. But hey, sources are sources, and behind closed doors, it is unique on how reporters get the information that they do. And that's why they're sources, and that's why they're rarely revealed.
Zach, good stuff, man. Saturday night's going to be fun. So go live it up for the rest of us who aren't going to be in the building. People can follow you at Bada_Bingham, or, of course, on any of the A to Z sports platforms. Always great catching up with you, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Zach. Zach Bingham right there. When we come back, it's time for the weekly stat dump. We have another thing with Derrick Henry. There's another one. He's doing something else.
What?
Like another 62-year kind of, oh, my gosh, thing for Derrick Henry. That's next. Blaine and Mickey.
Buck Rising loves him some Urban Meyer. I think that almost daily we should have an Urban Meyer update just so that we can find some comedy, because this is an outright disaster. The next time Herb steps in it, Buck will be waiting. I'm begging you. I dare you. The Buck Rising Show. Tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
It's like somebody needs a catch and it'll be 12 games in a row, or, the defense is looking for its second straight performance of allowing less than 28 points or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the Derrick Henry stuff is always like Derrick Henry and Jim Brown are the only two people. So here's this week's.
Yeah, well, he's FedEx player for the third time already, right?
Yes, third time already. This season. Why not just call it somebody tweeted me and said, why not just call it the King
Award? Not even in
Award?
the top 5 in MVP.
Not in the top 9, according to some. All quarterbacks, 9 quarterbacks.
He pissing the king off.
Well, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
what's your stat that he's done again?
And I didn't even realize this. I read it again in the commercial break.
Uh-oh.
This particular streak started the day Ryan Tannehill became the starter.
Mm.
So the Kings had a different life under Tannehill, that's for sure. So here we go. Another active streak of Derrick Henry's. 30 consecutive games with at least 50 yards. Ranks among the top 3 in the NFL in the last 62 seasons.
No, say this again.
He has 30 games where he got at least 50 yards rushing in the game.
Okay.
And in the last 62 seasons, it's in the top 3. So since the beginning of 1960 season, the only players to reach 30 consecutive games with at least 50 yards on the ground are Derrick Henry, Priest Holmes, and of all people, you would remember this guy, Chris Warren, who played for the Seahawks. That's it. So number 1 is Priest Holmes. He did it 38 times in a row.
I played against 2 of those guys. I played against Warren and Priest Holmes.
Yeah.
Priest Holmes is underrated.
And he wasn't even drafted.
Yeah.
He came out of nowhere, this
Yeah,
guy.
I think he went to Texas.
Texas. Yeah.
He didn't flourish until he was in that offense of the Kansas City Chiefs, because he was with the Ravens and he was really good, but then he blew up because he could catch the ball too. He wasn't a big guy either. He was probably a 5'8"-ish guy.
It was the greatest example of, because sometimes people go, that guy stinks. No, that guy doesn't stink. He's in the wrong scheme. Yeah. They're not using him. Priest Holmes went to Kansas City, was like an MVP candidate type guy.
Perennial Pro Bowl after that.
I mean, he had 3. I'd have to look, but I want to say it's like 3 years for Priest Holmes were the numbers you would look at.
It was kind of like Marshall Faulk.
Yes.
I mean, seriously. I mean, his impact in the game. I don't know if his skill sets were as good, but he was that kind of impact.
So
Derrick Henry's in that conversation.
So only 3 people since 1960 have had 30 games in a row. That 50 yards, that seemed hard, but that shows you how hard the league is. Priest Holmes has 38 games in a row. Chris Warren had 31. Derrick Henry has 30. So if he gets 50 yards, he only got 57 against Buffalo. To me, that's what makes this so interesting. Now they got turnovers, and they ultimately, like you said earlier, you don't have to wear the king out. If you don't have to wear the king out, you're doing it other ways. Chris Warren had 31 games. Derrick Henry has 30. If he gets 31 on Monday night, then it's Priest Holmes, Derrick Henry, Chris Warren. Like that's the list.
Definitely wouldn't have put Chris Warren on the elite category. So
nope.
That's kind of surprising there.
Just consistent there.
Well, his style is just a little bit different, but his running style was kind of like Chris Brown that we had here. Was that his name? Chris
Yeah.
Brown? Yeah, he was similar to him in his style.
He ran up tall.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it was amazing that he, stayed healthy for that long with that style. So, some guys run tall, but then all of a sudden when they're getting hit, they get down.
Yep.
Everybody used to say that about Eric Dickerson, but you never saw anybody get a great shot on him.
Nope.
He was only standing up when he was in the open field. Yeah.
Big, fast.
Yeah.
That's another 2,000-yard guy, Eric Dickerson.
He was pretty nice. That was when, I'm from Indy, so that's when we had the Colts and they did all that, trading for him and everything else when he was holding out from the Rams.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and then he strayed a hamstring, and it was like, boo, throw him back. He's a piece of trash. I was like, wow, dang. Not knowing that I'd eventually make it to the league. I had no idea.
So here's a couple others on the way out. Henry can also accomplish the following this week against Buffalo. He needs 110 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown to join Jim Brown, Eric Dickerson, and Terrell Davis as the only player since 1960 with 750 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns in the first 6 games of a season.
Ooh, that's big
so
time.
So Hall of Fame
right
Jim
there.
Brown, Hall of Fame Eric Dickerson, and 2,000-yard Eric Dickerson, 2,000-yard Terrell Davis, and Jim Brown had 1,846 in.
And all Hall of Famers. Terrell Davis.
All Hall of Famers, yes. Right? Jim Brown had 1846 or 1864 in his big season. That was the record that OJ broke when he got 2003.
And that was in like 14 games?
The Jim Brown thing was either in 12 or 14. OJ's was in 14. Yeah.
Oh.
And then it went to 16. OJ did it in 1973. And then it went to 16 games in 70.
Make sure everybody that's streaming
Five or
is
six.
watching this live, make sure you follow Mickey's eyeballs because that is where he's pulling the answers out of his.
They're right. You
skull.
know me, though. I hate to be wrong on anything about the 70s. I hate to
wouldn't
be
even
wrong
try
on
to
that.
attempt to even know that information.
I hate to be wrong on that. OJ had 2003 and 23 touchdowns in his big year, 73. All right. It's a big year for us, and it's a big hour, too. And Doug Mathews is going to join us to talk Vols and Ole Miss, and that's coming up next on Blaine and Mickey.
Vols.
Titans play Monday, so we have you covered Sunday with an NFL triple header. First, it's the Packers and Bears, followed by the Ravens and Broncos, and then the Steelers and Seahawks on Sunday Night Football on Nashville's home for the most NFL, 104.5 The
The guys are going down there right from the station. I would not be down there. I don't know about what you guys. Lucas, you going?
I'll be there. I'm going to the game.
Listen to this rascal.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to the game. I'm not broadcasting at Calhoun's. I might swing by, though, as J. Mart, Ramon, Will, and Slay are all going to be live.
What he's saying
Calhoun's.
is he will enjoy himself with no restraints
they're
or
giving out free
constraints.
food.
It is
Free
it is
food,
a
man.
pleasure trip, not a business trip this weekend.
Yeah, at least you get to have the pleasure trips, man. That's cool. You can go
Take them when I can get them.
We will expect a full pleasure trip evaluation.
Who you going down with there? You going down there with Will? You guys going down together?
We're not going down together because Will's broadcasting. I think he's going to the game with his family, just roommate, friends. Kind of. It's always that one weekend where college friends reunion type of thing. People coming down from different states.
How
Kind of like
pumped
what
up
you
are
just did at your high school.
the fans? Yeah.
What's that?
How pumped up are your buddies about going down to the game?
More than in years. You know, I mean, it's going to be the best atmosphere since I would mark the 2016 Florida game 5 years ago when I was a junior at the University of Tennessee.
Playing Lane Kiffin, he said he can't remember the last time it was sold out, huh?
Yeah, he also
Yeah, he
said
had to
he's
bring
not
that up.
sure how he'll be received. He said it's gotten a little better over the last few years, but I don't know how it's going to be when you walk
how do
in
you
there.
think he'll be received? Like, what is the fan base like? Are they 50-50?
Oh, it's gonna be some
60-40?
boos, I think.
Oh, it's going to be
70?
booze. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I meant like how they really feel. Like, naturally got to boo them. But
yeah, I think Will made the point on we did the UT podcast yesterday on the Zone Podcast Network. He made the point that on Twitter it feels like fans. It does feel like fans have forgiven him, right? Just like on social media, because people are tweeting at him, "Come back, we miss you," all that stuff. But Will made a good point that Twitter's not real life.
not
Probably the majority of fans are still much more heartbroken and took it personally. Like I don't take things personally in sports. You know, like when Henry To'oTo'o transferred to Alabama, I didn't. It sucks.
Right.
You can hate it, but he's doing what's best for him. I don't take that personally. A lot of fans do, and that's okay. But so I think he'll get booed.
Oh, so you think it's like 80-20?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's walking in there in Ole Miss colors, and you want to beat him. I mean, even the fans that love
you
him
wanna
want to beat him. Even the
I'm
fans
talking
that
about-
will take him back want to beat him more than anything.
Oh, okay, man, he's hated like that.
They can win this game.
Oh, I already made it. I called my shot. They're winning this game.
Pre-called your shot.
Yeah, I'm pre-calling. They're going to win the game. Yeah, they're going to win. Their defense is better. That's what I'm basing it on.
No, it is better.
Better than Ole Miss. Ole Miss's defense is like ranked 100.
It is 100.
It was
Allowed
crazy.
31 points per game, almost 200 rush yards per game.
So
Yeah.
I just don't see it. I think they're going to run the football even more so, and that is UT than people think. Yeah, I really do. They're going to get them. But it's funny, in the same coordinator, you can confirm this with me, the offensive coordinator that was with Hypo at UCF is now the offensive coordinator with Ole Miss.
Jeff Levy.
Yeah.
Levy.
These teams know each other. Offensively, they know what the other's doing.
Oh, that's
They're-
going to be a lot of like the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other in the game.
This is going to be, oh, man, I'm hoping to see a lot of fireworks. And UT gets to practice against their own team, so they're much more prepared than anybody to go against this style of offense.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm betting on that. You feeling pretty comfortable there, Lucas? You're not getting nervous.
2 weeks ago, you would have said there's no way. But seeing how things have gone for Ole Miss against Alabama, the letdown that was on the road, you at least thought that was going to be a good game, right?
Yeah.
And they blew them out. After that opening drive, Ole Miss got all the way down, got stopped on downs. Game was over. So, and with the way Tennessee's defense has played especially, yeah, I mean, you're way more confident now than you were 2 weeks ago. That just kind of speaks to the momentum they've been able to build over the last 2 weeks.
Who does Vegas have winning?
It's Ole Miss by 4, 3
No,
and a half?
no.
I said boo.
No, it's down to 2.5.
Wow. Wow, I thought it would be like a touchdown.
It's down to 2.5. It was 4.5. It's down to 2.5.
I had no idea. 2.5 is usually the home team. I'm not a gambler. Gets 3 points. So this really means Ole Miss still is supposedly supposed to win this game in a close one.
They have the better quarterback, right? I mean, Matt Corral's a contender for the Heisman Trophy. Hendon Hooker's played really well.
But Hendon Hooker is the higher-rated passer right now.
Right.
They're
Don't
number
base
one and
it off
number
of
two.
some of the politics now, Lucas. You got to pay attention. That don't mean he's the better performer because he's in the Heisman conversation. If you go look at the numbers,
That's true.
in less games, remember he didn't even start.
If he started against Pittsburgh, hey, man.
Yeah, you probably win
He's
that
playing
game.
phenomenal. As long as he protects the football and don't turn it over, they're gonna win.
Well, Matt Corral hasn't thrown a pick yet.
Well, he's going to Saturday night.
I think that might be my shot.
Yeah.
He's got 12 he's got
The tide has to
146
change.
attempts. He has 12 touchdowns, no interceptions.
I'm going all in. I think the Vols gonna get him, man. I do. They have to get over the hypeness early in the game because they get a little too
Catch your
jacked
breath.
up.
Yep, catch your breath.
Slow down, take a deep breath, and then go. Yeah, then they'll be fine.
Because those dudes, Lucas, are going to see, like, those cats are going to see what Neyland's supposed to look like. Some of those dudes on Tennessee, especially new guys, Kenan Hooker's never seen this thing like what it's really supposed to look like. Saturday night is what it is supposed to look like because of COVID or just because of apathy or whatever. Hey, man, this is what it's supposed to always look like.
Should they save the jerseys, the black jerseys for the night? I mean, Saturday night?
A lot of people thought that.
A lot of people thought that, but I thought that initially too, but then I kind of changed my tune on it. And one of the reasons the smoky grays, people got tired of them were because they would lose in them, right? Because they'd take them out for games where you're playing. You're going for the upset, right? Or it's like a toss-up game that's 50-50 and you lose. And when you lose in them, people hate them. So take them out against a team you're favored against, roll, and go to the next week with confidence. Plus, Lane Kiffin would definitely have said something about the black jerseys. He was the first one to take them out. So you prevent him from having that little quip post-game about, real creative that they take out the black jerseys when they're playing me.
Speaking of Lane Kiffin, I think you have this sound. What did he say about coming back and how he would be received? Here it is.
I don't know that. I feel like, it's gotten better over the years, just in general and, messing around in Twitter and stuff like that.
Messing around.
And whatever, a few years back when there was the opening, I think, someone sent an article over all the email requests from fans to Fulmer, about hiring us back there. And so, but I don't know. I still am. That may be one thing, to say that and feel good about people in a relationship until they jog out in a different color, and for those next 3 hours, you need to beat them. So I don't know.
You can tell he doesn't really know how to, normally he's a very definitive speaker. You can tell he really doesn't know how to feel it because in everything I've ever seen from him, I think he liked being at Tennessee. I don't think it's necessarily him thinking, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get out of here. He said at the time, I only want to do the press conference to tell people why I would leave this place. The most bizarre press conference, by the way, in Tennessee sports media history.
But meanwhile, his agent is telling him not to do it.
Yeah.
Tennessee's SID, Bud Ford, told him, don't do it. Just go.
But that's what you do. And for
it
him,
shows you he cared.
He cared.
He cared.
Well, that's the only job
a lot
he
of
would
people's
have
not
left
going to
for.
perceive it that way, but that is exactly because that was the right thing to do, just not that way.
Right.
But he didn't want a full-fledged cameras and everything else.
It made it worse, but it was the right thing to do, but it still
But I
made
would
it
have called him
worse,
cowardly for just leaving and not talking to the team or the media.
Yeah.
I would have called him a coward. I hate when the coaches do that.
Well, and I've heard the scene in the locker. I know some people that were on that team, and the scene in the locker room and that meeting was not good. It was not good. It was toxic. It was, as you would imagine.
Yeah, they were perturbed.
I'm just saying this. If the Scorpions ever call me to go on tour and play bass, I'll come back and do one more show and say bye to you guys. I won't just leave you. I promise you. Before I embark on my world tour, we go to Dusseldorf and everywhere. I'll come back. I'll do one. I'll at least do half of one. I'll at least come on and do one final. I'll drive by and honk on my way out of town.
Oh, that's horrible.
Well, the thing is, that's the only job Kiffin would have left for. It was USC. I believe that. He said that. I think there's a few bands that you would tour the country with and leave us for. And that's okay. I understand that.
Yeah, just not, 12, 13 maybe. Baker's dozen.
You would have left easily. You can't lie. You don't have a straight face. That big vein in your forehead is pronounced. It says, I would leave in a heartbeat.
Blaine is our body language interpreter as well on the station, so he's interpreting that I'm not lying about this. All right. Blaine mentioned this, so here we go. Vols are 37th in scoring defense right now in the NCAA, 21.5 points. In college offense, that's good.
Oh,
the Rebels are tied for 106, 32.5 points.
Oh, they're worse than I thought they were.
They're 100, which you were right, in total offense, total defense. 100 in total defense. The Vols are 47. Ole Miss, and Lucas said this one just in passing, they allow 191 rush yards per game.
That's why I said they're going to run the football.
They're
going to run the football more than people think. They're going to still throw.
Yeah.
I mean, but they're going to run the ball. And as I said before the season started, I went back and watched 3 games of UCF, and they ran the football 50-50 every game I watched.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So that's what he does. That's really the trigger that makes this offense work, running the football. Mm-hmm. The passing part is the easy. You just can't sit back and just throw it around the yard everywhere.
And isn't that funny? Because if you spread people out, people just go, "Oh, it's a spread passing." No, not at all.
You spread everybody out, and then only so many guys are in the box to stop the run.
That's it. Gus Malzahn corrected me on that once. I mentioned their spread offense, and he said it's a downhill offense with spread principles.
Yeah.
So Eli Drinkowitz told me the same thing. He worked with Gus, and I'm like, I will never make this mistake again. But
So
you're
this
right.
offense is like air raid offense, right? With the running game. Is that what they term it, or what do they call it?
What does Heupel call his offense, Lucas?
Well, I'm talking about the principles.
I think it's more run and shoot principle
really?
offense. Yeah, is kind of the way I've heard it phrased.
Shoot,
He won't
man,
put
I
much of a
practiced
label
against
on it.
that for a year. He said that. Run and shoot.
Although the run and shoot seemed like a lot more shooting than running that your team did, the Oilers.
Yeah,
Chuck and duck. Isn't that what Buddy Ryan called it?
Well, no, they did run the football. We had Lorenzo White
That's
as
true.
well as Gary Brown was the running backs, and
Yeah.
they all rushed for over 1,000 yards. What he called a chuck and duck is when they got in the red zone 20 and in, you cannot throw the football. There's not enough space for that offense to work. You have to run the football. And so he wanted them to run the football or have another, phase of the offense that ran the football, whether it was I formation, 2-back, 3-back, whatever it may have been, to, score. And then also in the red zone, also then to milk the clock when you needed to run the football.
Yeah.
And that's what bothered him. As time went on, he kept speaking much more louder because it's going to cost us in the playoffs. And he was exactly right, and that's exactly what happened.
We got Doug Mathews coming up next. Evan in Franklin. Let's squeeze in one quick call on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. Hey, Evan, give us a couple seconds here. What you got?
Hey, guys, just wanted to say the run defense will go a long way in helping prevent Ole Miss not convert third downs as well. And there's another edge for Tennessee. Tennessee's 14th, converting nearly 50% of theirs, while Ole Miss is 80th. And they're like 10 of 28 in their last 2 games when it comes to converting third downs. So if Tennessee can stop them early on first and second, then that sets up favorable position for third down.
The nutty
stuff.
Good
Good
the
stuff.
nutty thing about Ole Miss, they go for it a lot on fourth down.
Oh, that's what people say.
Like, okay,
Yeah, hopefully Lane makes a lot of bad decisions. When he went for it on the 35,
Don't do
backed
that.
up
Don't do
against
that.
Bama,
Don't
that
do
was
that.
personal.
Yeah.
That was personal. It was him versus Saban. You're not on the field, Lane. Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
So everybody should say, we got our popcorn ready, Lane.
It's going to be fun. I cannot wait. And, of course, you can hear the game right here on 104.5 The Zone in pregame with J. Martin, Ramon, and Calhoun's and Lucas up there on a pleasure trip. My Lord, what a Saturday we got ahead of us. What a next segment we got coming up, too. Coach Doug Mathews will join us. We'll keep this discussion.
He's at Calhoun's already.
He may be. We'll find out what his appetizer is. Blaine and Mickey.
Coming up today on the 3HL.
It's Thirsty Thursday. You know what I'm thirsty for? Some football talk. We're getting close to the weekend, man, and we got to break it down with the best in the film business, Greg Cosell.
And then we'll break it down with a vet, NFL vet, retired NFL vet, one that just goes by the name of Savagery. Ramon Foster will join us also.
Let's do it. You ready?
Oh, we going to rock and rolling. It is Weekend Eve. That's what I was trying to get to.
Well, you got to it.
Today, starting at 3 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
Got my good friend Ryan Kelly on the line. The
little added excitement, maybe would be the word.
I think that's fair, Coach. How did you keep your guys from getting so jacked up by, noon or 1 o'clock or 3 or anything, and keep them on an even keel so they could peak at the right time on a Saturday night game?
Well, I think a lot of most coaches would rather play an early game. And remember, Tennessee practices in the morning. So I don't know. I'm sure they probably had some type of evening practice to get under the lights. I would guess maybe a couple of 3 times. Not going to be greatly dark when they kick off, but it'll get that way pretty closely. But I don't know that really as a coach you worry about that much. You're particularly with a veteran team. And well, this team's got a lot of young players. They got a lot of older players too. And in today's Southeastern Conference football, but college football also, you're going to play a 12 o'clock game. You're going to play a 2:30 game. You're going to play a 7 o'clock game, 7:30, maybe even 8 o'clock game Eastern time. So yeah, I think you kind of get used to that, but I don't know. I think coaches probably worry too much about that. If they do, that's certainly not something you could control. And you kind of count on your players being able to do that themselves.
Coach Doug Mathews, our guest, joins us the same time every week, courtesy of the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. If you put down some drinks, put down your keys. Remember, fans don't let fans drive drunk. Brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office.
Well, Coach, I'm going to go back to the last game, and in particular the second half. Give us your observation, because they started off like gangbusters, and it seemed like, well, this is not going to be very much of a game at all. And then all of a sudden, you have some miscues here or there, and some of the young guys probably felt like, this game is over. Kind of take us through some of the things you would have told your team at halftime to kind of guard against some of those things, and what did you see in the second half that maybe concerned you, if anything?
Blaine, certainly you go out, come out of the halftime, and you're talking to your team. Head coach does most of the talking, quite frankly, in that vein, but it's about listen. You've heard it in all the years you've been playing, hey, let's go out and act like it's 0-0. Well, it's not 0-0, and these guys aren't stupid. They're college students. Right. I think a couple of things happened this game. I kind of take a little different view than some of my friends, my coaching buddies do. Uh-huh. It'd been one thing if Tennessee would have came out and played sloppily, but they did not. They only had 2 penalties the whole ball game, and one of them was they were both on defense, one on offense. They didn't have any turnovers. They really played a really clean game. I would tend to maybe give a little bit more credit to South Carolina. I've got to believe that getting your fanny kicked the first half, that head football coach and that staff's probably going to say, hey, let's at least go out there and show some fight. It probably was a little bit of both. But quite frankly, Blaine, they were so far ahead at that point, and right. knew Tennessee was going to score some points the second half. It was almost an impossibility to get beat. You would like to see them play a little bit better as a coach, but again, it wasn't because of sloppy play. If they had laid the ball on the ground, made a bunch of pre or post snap penalties, that'd have been one thing. But they didn't do that. Like I said, they only had 2 penalties. Both defense. One of those was a kind of an inadvertent face mask. So I thought from that standpoint, Tennessee played really well in this past ball game.
Any other guys that stood out to you that you want to give a shout out here on Blaine and Mickey that you enjoyed their performance?
Well, you have to talk about Brandon Turnage. Yeah, Here's a young man who came in. He actually had been working at cornerback
outside
almost his whole time in camp. And the only way he plays is not only if the starting nickel player, and again, he hadn't worked a whole lot at the nickel position leading into this game week. Not only is Theo Jackson out, but also the backup, Danico Slaughter's out. So he has to come in and play. And what a great example. And I'm sure Coach Heupel will use this as long as he's at Tennessee. It's the perfect example of a young man who had not played hardly any. He'd been on the kick teams, played a little bit in mop-up roles. When his time came, when they called his number, he not only came in and played pretty well, he played really well. 14 tackles, was all over the field, cemented he'll be playing some more, I guarantee. Secondary, their 5 starters are really good football players. And all of the 5 starters in the secondary, the nickelback and the 2 corners and the 2 safeties, they've all have started at least 3 years at Tennessee. And but I think that was the big thing coming out of that. That young man was ready to play. He obviously knew what he was doing, and he played spectacularly. He played it. Theo Jackson, I think, has been the best player every play of every game overall. But Turnage came in, and if he'd have had 26 on his back, he'd have looked just like Theo Jackson. Pretty darn impressive from my standpoint.
But after you talked about it, Lane Kiffin coming back into town, what do you remember that stands out when Lane Kiffin was his, one stint year there with UT?
Well, I am probably not the right guy to ask about that. But I'll give you my opinion. I thought Lane Kiffin was a number one. You hire who you can hire. He never, to me, ever wanted to be at Tennessee. He stayed 1 year. He ran off a bunch of players off of that football team before he left. He and Ed Orgeron, who was his defensive coach that came in early. He had some like to kind of talk about the great job he did there. He had basically 3 first-round draft choices on that team. Barry was one of them, and he had the big tackle, I forget his name, Williams, I think, out of Memphis. And then Montario Hardesty was a early second-round guy, so he had basically 3 first-round players on that team. But he didn't want to be there, he had Southern Cal all over him. He ended up going out there, and of course, a couple of years later, he gets fired on the tarmac out there. So again, I'm not a very big Lane Kiffin fan, but this isn't about Lane Kiffin. This is about Ole Miss coming to town. Ole Miss has got a 4-1 record. They played what I still think is, if not the best, one of the top 2 teams in the country in Alabama. They won the other 4 ball games. They're a high-powered offense, not so much on defense. Tennessee's playing really well right now. I think this is going to be it should be a really, really good football game. I give Tennessee just a little edge, if that, because they are, I think, better on defense than Ole Miss is. Now, having said that, both these teams can score, and if one of them is really hitting on all cylinders, it could be a good night for them. But I think it's going to be a heck of a ball game. I really do. If
Tennessee wins this game, man, they should be ranked at that point, don't you think?
Probably will be, but coming up, their next 3 ball games is Alabama,
well,
Open, Georgia, or Kentucky, and then Georgia. And those are I could make a strong argument right now. Everybody's talking about how good Iowa is, and they are. I don't think they're any better, and I don't know that they'd win in a matchup against Kentucky. Kentucky's playing really good football right now. They're not flashy, but boy, they play really well both sides of the ball. They got a quarterback now, that transfer youngster Levis has come in playing well, and I think they'll give Georgia all they want down there. I think Georgia a little bit better, but Kentucky playing really well right now.
We're on with the coach, Doug Mathews.
Coach, it's interesting. We had a caller who checked in earlier, and he said, the Rebels just aren't that good on 3rd down. There's an opportunity for Tennessee, but the crazy thing about them is they've gone for it on 4th down 24 times. They're 18 of 24 on 4th down, and we're, not halfway through the season. The Lane train doesn't always stop on 4th down.
No, and I tell you about that. The good thing for Tennessee is, you remember, you have every play of every game that the team's played. So they have on that 4th down tape, they got 24 plays to look at. So they'll know exactly what they like to do against particular defenses on it. And it doesn't surprise me. I mean, when you're not playing well on defense, or you're not very good on defense, you're going to go for it more. And we've seen that a lot. And you mentioned 18 of 24. I think 3 of those 6 that they didn't make, or maybe all 4 of them, was against Alabama. So they've had pretty good success doing that. But Tennessee will be ready for that. And here's the thing about going for it on 4th down. When you look at it as a defensive coach, if I'm a defensive play caller, and I'm going against a team that goes on 4th down, there's a couple of things that go into it. Number one, where is it on the field? All right, where are they on the field? If the offense is in their end of the field and going for it, I'll probably play just good, solid defense and not try to give up a big play. If they're in my end of the field, maybe field goal area, I might do a little bit more, be a little bit more aggressive, play a little bit more tough man to man, or bring people off the corner a little bit more. And then also what goes into it is the score of the game.
Mm-hmm.
If you're significantly up and they're just going forward, hey, we want them to run clock. We're not going to give a big play. Not going to let them break a long run, get them on the ground, and let them snap it again. So all those things will play into what you do defensively when a team's going forward on fourth down.
Arkansas ran for 350 against them. Vols certainly have had a lot of success on the ground so far this year, and a healthy Tyon Evans would go a long way towards some more of that on Saturday.
Believe he's healthy. One of the things that I really like that Coach Heupel does, remember, he's the play caller. He has shown really in almost all the 6 games, if the pass is there, he's going to pass it. If the run is there, he's going to run it. I don't think he cares which one he does, because they ran 57, 58 times last week because they were giving him the run. The other thing that he does that kind of you start seeing what his philosophy is. And I love this as an offensive guy. Didn't like it so much when I was a defensive guy. He is going to make you stop and cover and think about the takeoff routes. He will throw 4, 5, 6 of those a game at least, and he's going to make you stop that. They're throwing it to Peyton, primarily number 3 right now. And I tell you one other thing that they really zeroed in, he has really zeroed in on. He knows what a quarterback can do, Hooker. He knows who his possession receiver is. They get the ball to Jones Jr. on short routes because he has the ability to break tackles, and he's done that. The Tillman youngster is a bigger, more physical kid. He can go deep, but he also can go short. And the thing that I love about it is he's leaving his playmakers out on the field. Hooker's out there. Hooker's going to carry it 10 times a game. Evans is going to carry it 15 or so. They'll probably get, I think Small will probably be back for this ball game. He's probably going to get 8, 10 carries also. And then the biggest thing that the big plus I saw coming out for a Tennessee fan coming out of last week's game, we all have been waiting for Jalen Hyatt to have a breakout game that shows his ability. He is the most talented receiver on that team. He's had a little case of the dropsies, and he had 2 contested catches, 1 for a touchdown. They were difficult catches, and he snatched them with his hands, and that has to be a big confidence factor to him. I'll be very surprised if we don't see these last 6 games Jalen Hyatt making a lot of plays, because he has all the ability in the world.
Coach Doug Mathews joining us here on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, Coach, with all's going well, that means it should be going well in recruiting. How's recruiting going?
I think this decision here's the that's not a quandary, but here's where Tennessee is right now. Number one, they're not nobody's talking about this, but they're not exactly sure if they're going to lose any scholarships because of the recruiting situation. And I don't think they'll know that probably until maybe even going into next year. The other part of it is here's what the big plus that happened for all programs this past week. The NCAA gave their approval for kind of a bridge, a stopgap, that going forward this year, after this year, you can have your 25 original scholarships you get every year, and then you can go up to 7 more scholarships, 1 for every transfer that you lose. So potentially, if you lose at least 7 transfers, you can have 32 scholarships. So they'll be looking at that. My guess is they have, I think, 14 commitments, Blaine, and I think they're kind of held their scene because they know they're going to have to bring in some. They know they're going to have to bring in some transfers, and boy, they had great success with transfers this year, by the way. And then the last part of it is this: they have I think 8 or 9. And I don't know the exact number because I'm not exactly sure where all of them fall. They have 8 or 9 seniors that because of the COVID year last year could return. Two offensive linemen, Alontae Taylor and Flowers, both are seniors who could come back. So how many of those are going to come back? I think some will. How many of those are going to come back? So, but recruiting right now, I would say it's in decent shape, and a lot of it's going to have to do with which of those transfers they get, and also who's going to be leaving. I don't anticipate they're going to have very many players transfer out. I think they maybe a quarterback probably, but other than that, I don't see anybody that's really going to play up there much that's going to be transferring. I think they got a pretty happy, content, and I'm talking about the atmosphere situation in Knoxville right now, and all that's a big plus. And all that, quite frankly, is the direct result of Coach Josh Heupel.
Well, Coach Doug Mathews, always great stuff. Tennessee Highway Safety Office putting you on. People can also catch you football Saturday and Big Orange Sunday as well. Coach, we look forward to it every week, and can't wait to talk about this game next week.
We'll do it. You guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Coach. When we come back, who practiced today for the Titans? Who didn't practice? We'll hit you with that. Also, opening night for the Preds. We'll wrap things up next on Blaine and Mickey.
The Vols welcome Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin back to Neyland Stadium for a mid-October SEC primetime game. Coverage starts Saturday at 3 on your home for the Vols and most SEC 104.5 The Zone.
built 3-year deal.
Oh, man, that hurt you.
No, it doesn't hurt me. Let's see what's there.
It hurt you more than y'all lost, right?
Yes, that hurts a lot more. Lost to Jimmy Wyatt's Dodgers. Jim, if you're listening, tip of the cap to you. Titans practice today. This is from Jim White. Good news. Wide receiver Julio Jones practiced again on Thursday for the Titans. So did Bud Dupree.
What?
And safety Amani Hooker, who's in that weird window of coming off of
I
IR.
think Hooker's playing. I got to see some video of Dupree.
We'll find some because last week, to Blaine Bishop's credit, we watched video of Dupree last week, like 3 plays, and you're like,
and Evans.
Yes, and you're like, that dude's not playing.
Yeah, Evans, I saw a video of him today. And
you saw Evans today?
Yeah, he looked a lot better than last week, but it's still going to be close.
So he's still in the window, and you were like, yeah, I'm going to move on from him. This is going to be a minute. But
he looked a lot better than last week.
Okay, well, that's good. Bad news. So it's a good news, bad news tweet from Jim Wyatt, Titans reporter. No sign of Christian Fulton or Caleb Farley for the second straight day.
What?
No sign.
What is wrong with them?
I don't know. And Shane Bowen said today if Christian Fulton couldn't go, and I think Teron Davenport had tweeted this earlier, basically said if Christian Fulton couldn't go, then they needed Caleb Farley to go. And as Jim White is now saying, no practice for the second straight day, said Derrick Henry got the day off.
What is his – do we know his injury on this one? Because he did practice initially on Monday, right? I don't recall him being on the injury report until yesterday. Maybe I missed it. Ah, man. Golly, I mean, he played in the game and did fairly decent.
It's one of those things where it's like, what now?
It cannot be anything. It was a shoulder in the beginning of the season. And we got a Dylan Radin sighting, too. Granted, he wasn't injured, but I'm talking about, like, looked like he moving around like he ready to get ready to go.
But he ought to be well rested. I mean, let's be honest. Like, hey, man.
Oh, man, you throwing him on the bus. He has
No,
nothing to do
I mean, he's
with
got
that.
fresh legs, I'm saying. I mean,
that's what I'm talking about. He does look like he got fresh legs, considering that it was almost 1,400 views of him just blocking someone in front of him one-on-one.
I too am well rested.
Lucas Panzica well rested.
Oh, man. Man, I want to see some video. Why is there no video of Dupree? I see nothing.
Because somebody was listening to the show last week, and Blaine watched 3 plays and was like, hey, man, that guy's not playing on Sunday. I'm calling my shot now. I don't expect to see that guy play.
Now they're dressing guys based off of what I say off of video?
100%. They can't put the video out there if you're just going to instantly interpret it and go, oh, no, this guy's not playing.
If that's what's happening, then that means they up here making dudes play. They should be playing.
It's like all the Dylan Radin talk. They're like, hey, man, these guys keep wondering when you're going to play. You got to play. Sam Brylo's gone.
Well, peer pressure is a mess, isn't it?
Dallas says on here, as he should be, he's played 1 game in 2 years, talking about Dylan Radin's. Remember, he played 1 game in his last year of college against, like, Central Arkansas. That's a trivia question for everything. It's like the teams that played 1 game all played Central Arkansas.
Oh, man.
I did not go to Central Arkansas. Preds get it rolling tonight. It's their 24th season. That doesn't even seem possible. At home against the Kraken. The Kraken have already played. They lost to Vegas 4-3 Tuesday night. That was a fun game to watch. They were down 3-0 and came back and tied it. And then one of the Vegas guys, I showed you the video. He kicked the puck in the net, and they're like, oh, he did not kick it. That's a good goal. Yeah. The dude kicked it. They got the win. They are the 6th youngest team in the NHL, 26.85 years. This is a young Predators team. I thought about this. So if you're 30 years old and you grew up in Middle Tennessee, Lucas, you grew up in Alabama, but you're sort of in the age group that's at least you got a ways to go to get to 30. But if you're 30 years old and you grew up in Middle Tennessee, you don't ever remember a time, more than likely, when there wasn't pro hockey. Because you're 5, 6 years old, you probably don't have a whole lot of memories. You might remember when the Predators started because maybe you had Nash come to your school or you had, you went to a game or something like that. But 30 years old or so, you don't even remember a time in Middle Tennessee without hockey. So congrats to the Preds. Year 24 against the Kraken tonight. That ought to be fun. And Lucas is telling me before we got to go, and we do got to go, y'all jump on the phones right now. 615-737-1045. Caller 5. Lucas has Vols